I wanted to talk about this controversy with the Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch. Hey guys, I wanted to pop in to give my opinion on this big controversy going on with the Mortal Kombat 1 version for the Nintendo Switch. I think a lot of people get the Nintendo company misconstrued about how they handled their IPs. This is what I'm talking about. Nintendo never focused on the power of their consoles. So that's like a double-edged sword. In one hand, it's enough power for their IPs, such as Mario Odyssey, the Kirby games, the Zelda games. This is enough power to push their IPs through. But when it comes to AAA or third-party IPs, Nintendo is going to have an issue, especially the Switch, because the designer's Switch was meant to be portable, it was meant to be lightweight, and it was dockable, but it doesn't necessarily bump that resolution up to, let's say, a 4K version. I know they came out with an OLED version of the Switch, but I don't know if there was slight performances in power. But when we're talking about a game like Mortal Kombat, you're going to see high resolution, X-rays with the finishing moves. And I think it's just kind of crazy to expect Nintendo to perform on the same level as, say, as Xbox Series S or PS5. It just doesn't make sense to me. So to me, this is what Nintendo has always done concerning the Mortal Kombat games in general. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Now, in no way in this video I'm trying to be biased, but we all know that power is not the main focus of the Nintendo company. This version of the new Mortal Kombat 1 game is not the best that you can get out right now. It kind of goes back to the roots of how Nintendo does things. We've got to start from the very beginning, because with the very first Mortal Kombat, not the new game out, but the first Mortal Kombat, there was the Genesis version and then there was the Super Nintendo version. Now when you look at the games, there's many videos out comparing the two games, and you will notice that the sprite work is better in the Super Nintendo than it is on the Sega Genesis. The original Super Nintendo version didn't have the original finishing moves, and it also did not have blood. So you couldn't have blood in the original game. Fast forwarding to Mortal Kombat 2, now the Sega Genesis has superior graphics to the Super Nintendo, but both versions allow the finishing moves and the blood. The reason why I'm bringing this up, the Super Nintendo version was never the definitive version to get when you wanted to play Mortal Kombat, as Mortal Kombat is a fast-paced game and it's also dealing with a lot of violence. So Nintendo never prioritized these types of games.
Blood splatters from the contestants' heads. When a player wins, the so-called death sequence begins. The game narrator instructs the player to finish, and I quote, finish his opponent. The player may then choose a method of murder, ranging from ripping a heart out to pulling off the head of the opponent with spinal cord attached. The second version, made by Nintendo, leaves out the blood and decapitation, but as you will see, it is still a violent game. For a lot of you to see, but there's blood splattering every time.
Kato wins. Flawless victor fatality. Sub-Zero win fatality.
Even when we skip up to Nintendo 64 and we compare Mortal Kombat 4 to, let's say, the Dreamcast version, we all know that the Dreamcast version of Mortal Kombat 4 is far superior graphically, sound, and everything else. Although the Nintendo 64 version is fun to play, it's not the definitive version. See, this created a pattern. During this particular generation, you had games that had a different way of displaying their graphics in a polygonal way. If I'm not mistaken, systems like the PlayStation used a triangular form of graphics, whereas the Nintendo 64 used polygonal graphics. So there's a big, huge difference in how the graphics were rendered versus the Nintendo 64 and let's say the PlayStation 1. Another thing to keep in mind about the 5th generation is the Nintendo 64 focused on cartridge-based games, which made the games cost a lot more, whereas the other systems such as the Saturn and also the PlayStation, they focus on CD-based games, which cut the cost down as far as the price of the game. Although as a whole the games loaded faster because they were offered on cartridge, people preferred the PlayStation or the Sega Saturn versions of these games. And then now we fast forward into the 6th generation, whereas the Xbox original, PlayStation 2, and the Dreamcast were far superior to the Nintendo Wii. We're talking about Mortal Kombat Armageddon, which it did get high ratings for the Wii. But as we know, when you go to the other systems, there was so many different versions available. You had Mortal Kombat Deception, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. You even had Shaolin Monks, and you couldn't get any of those versions of the game on the Nintendo Wii. So the main reason why I'm bringing this up is Nintendo never focused on its power. The original Xbox and the PlayStation 2 were significantly more powerful than the Nintendo Wii. Then we leap over into the 7th gen consoles. We're talking about the Xbox, we're talking about the PS3, and the gap even gets worse because what Nintendo decided not to do is jump into a new console. Well, technically, you could consider the Wii U the next jump, but ultimately the games did not compare. Now, when we get into the Switch now we're getting back to Mortal Kombat 1. I personally don't own a copy of Mortal Kombat 1 for the Switch, but I've done my research, seen several comparison videos, and I'm telling you, the Switch version looks awful, horrible. There's actual gaps in the graphics of the texture art of the characters. The graphics are neutered down. The audio is not the same quality as, say, for example, the PlayStation 5. And there are several videos out there, just look it up. It is the most horrible version of a Mortal Kombat game that I've ever seen. Now, the graphics remind me of not even 7th gen. This reminds me of anywhere between 5th and 6th gen graphics on the Nintendo Switch. Now, granted, Switch is great and Nintendo has always been great for certain types of games. For example, all the RPGs that came out for Nintendo, Chrono Trigger, etc. They excel well in a certain type of game that has a certain type of pace and a certain graphical requirement. And Nintendo overall always focused on the gameplay, not necessarily the power of the console. That's why they're never in a rush to leap to the next generation of power. They always go to the last gen's power for their next gen console. I always thought that was kind of weird that Nintendo does that, but I understand. Their focus is to sell more consoles at a lower cost to them. And by the time the new generation or new technology comes out, the old technology has significantly reduced in price. So to me, it's not a surprise that this Mortal Kombat 1 sucks in general, because Nintendo never focused on edgy, high-end graphics and also coming out with the best versions of games. That's just traditionally what Nintendo does. So, no strike against Nintendo. I grew up on Nintendo, love Nintendo. I have a Wii. I don't have a Wii U, and I don't have a Switch. I'm going to wait later on to get my Switch when the price is significantly reduced. But I'm at the core a Sega Genesis type of guy. And if I'm going to play something now, currently, it's either going to be on Xbox or it's going to be on a PlayStation. So let me know what you think about the new Mortal Kombat 1. To me, I'm not shocked, and I believe that this is just traditionally what Nintendo always does with games like Mortal Kombat. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I just want to pop on and give my opinion on the controversy on the Mortal Kombat 1 game. And do you think they're going to patch this game up and make improvements? Let me know in the comment section below. Guys, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.